Welcome to Advocacy Exchange, Navigating Injury Texas Law.
Welcome back to Advocacy Exchange, Navigating Texas Injury Law with Larry Littleton. Larry is senior counsel and the founder of Littleton Law Firm. He's been fighting for injured Texans since 1976, and he's recovered millions on behalf of his clients. I'm Kevin Rosenquist, and today we're taking a closer look at trucking accidents and why these cases are very different from standard car crashes. Larry, welcome back.
I'm welcome to be back or ready to go.
All right. So obviously a truck crash is going to be a little different or a lot different than two cars. What makes these so different from a typical car accident claim under Texas law?
Well, the obvious is you're dealing with a vehicle that's much greater in mass, greater in volume. And when they get involved in an accident, usually somebody gets seriously hurt. That's number one.
Yeah.
But the most important thing is to remember is that these people on the commercial side, they are ready to go. So when there's a serious accident that occurred, they make a phone call to usually a local regional defense firm. And that defense firm makes another phone call to have the reconstructions and photographs, photographers, everybody go out to the scene as quickly as possible. They'll be out there taking evidence, picking up evidence, talking to witnesses, taking pictures well before there's anybody can do anything. The client may be in an ambulance headed for a hospital.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Many of the defense firms, especially in Houston and in Dallas, advertise to insurance companies on their response team. And that's what they do, respond quickly to the scene of the accident to develop as many defenses as possible.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the second distinction that we're talking about is not only is it a very serious accident and taken very seriously by the defense and insurance company, but the other parts of it is that the circumstances with the injuries are usually more serious and more devastating. And so this is much more complicated. The recovery period is more complicated. There's a good chance the client can't work. Nobody's paying the bills. The car is usually gone. You don't see too many cars that survive an accident with an 18-wheeler, for example.
Right.
So it's a different ball game all the way around.
Yeah, for sure. How does your firm approach trucking cases differently from other cases when it comes to things like intake, investigation, that sort of stuff?
Well, we have pretty much the same thing as we do on auto cases, but it's a lot more detailed. For example, if I know that we've got a severe accident injury and we've been 3 days into it, we know that vehicle has been taken, their vehicle, the 18-wheeler, has been taken to a storage unit. So we put them on notice. We put them on notice that we want to see the vehicle and we want to investigate it. We also put out not only a letter of preservation for it, but also logs. Each commercial driver is required to carry a log that shows where they've been, what they've done, how long they slept, how long they rested, what were they eating, when they got gas, that kind of thing. Because both the federal and state regulations concerning how long they can drive and how much time they need for rest. So you could have a situation where the driver himself, the 18-wheeler, went to sleep, or he's exhausted. He's been driving for 15 hours. That would be evident log. That's something that you have to request. Log stay and requirement, I think, is 6 months. So it can be lost if you don't request it. And when you do the letters requesting the data and the information, the EDRs and any kind of dash cam preservation, you have to be very specific. You have to be very detailed as to what you're requesting to make them effective. And sometimes with 18-wheelers, they have control systems inside the cab. Not only are they recording from a dash cam point of view of everything external, but it's also internal as to what the driver was doing. Their systems are computerized with GPS locating, which means that they have a computer data printout of everywhere that 18-wheeler has been, how long they were there, and what they were doing.
Mm-hmm.
So all of that extra data has to be requested early on. The other things that we get into are pretty much what you do for a car accident: witnesses, photos of the vehicle, location, speed, family members. All of these things are done just about in all cases. But with 18-wheeler cases, it's more concentration on the vehicles and concentration on the liability issues that may be involved with evidence that the 18-wheeler companies had that normally you would not have in an ordinary car crash case.
Hmm.
So that makes a big difference.
Absolutely, yeah. And that, you talked about the logbooks and the GPS data and the black box. Those are pretty vital in these crashes, correct? Especially that black box data.
Oh, yes. The EDR on trucking cases is much more detailed than what you will find in ordinary auto cases.
Hmm.
And the details can give you things that will go further back. The GPS location system that is used and stored in the cloud can be pulled to be able to add to the picture of what that vehicle was doing prior to the accident. It will indicate for the last several days his stopping methods. For example, you can have a driver who is having sudden hard stops, they call it, and it's repeated over long periods of time. Well, that makes it suspicious. Is this something wrong with this driver? Is he is having a problem with being tired or exhausted, or is he under the influence of medication? Or it also could be an indication that there's a maintenance problem with the vehicle,
Hmm.
that the brakes are not working like they should, or they're not braking quickly, and sometimes they're grabbing. There's all kinds of information that the GPS, the recording, the dash cam, all of these little segments are put into a picture of exactly what was going on just before that accident, both inside the vehicle and outside.
And the inside, yeah, they have camera. That's an interesting thing that I've only recently found out. They have cameras inside too to keep an eye on what the drivers are doing, and presumably that's to make sure that they're not distracted. Correct?
It's correct. And many times, many of the 18-wheeler companies' individual policies indicate that you cannot be on a cell phone or using the cell phone for X amount of time.
Hmm.
Secondly, the video that's used internally like that is primarily used for them to determine whether they want to keep the driver, discipline the driver, making sure that they're doing the stops like they're supposed to, being an efficient, safe driver.
Hmm.
But you've got to request that information. You've got to get that dash cam. And in many situations, they'll clearly just push a button and stop it. And then you've got the photo of what was going on just at the time of the accident. All of a sudden it'll be blank and then it start up again. Okay. So you get your experts to look at it. Was this something that was modified? Was it filtered? Is there any kind of problem with this video? You give it to your expert and say, yeah, somebody turned it off. And that leaves the question is, why would you turn it off?
Right. Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah. What kind of state and federal regulations apply to truck drivers and trucking companies? Then and how can violating them impact the case?
You have the Federal Motors Act, and you also have a state Tex dot for Texas. And the regulations are, from a general point of view, the federal regulations are for all trucking. Okay, it is for all trucking that's involved that may be in interstate. If it's intra-state, in other words, within the boundaries of the state, then the Texas law provides provisions concerning it as well. The licensing is a little bit different. Texas has the commercial license. Commercial licenses are graded by the type of license. The license for a bus driver, a chauffeur, a license for dangerous chemicals, that kind of thing. And those regulations will also have them concerning the weight of the vehicle. There are regulations on the amount of driving. For you can drive about 12 hours, but you got to have 8 hours rest before. There's
Hmm.
different sets of regulations. Both of them require logs. Now, the federal is much more detailed requirement, and many times Texas will just simply copy and paste the federal rules and put it on theirs. So there's a lot of continuance, a lot of consistency between the federal regulations and the Texas regulations.
When it comes to liability, there can be a lot of different parties involved. You've got the driver, you've got the trucking company. There could be a third party maintenance provider or a shipper that people loaded the truck. There's a lot of different moving parts when it comes to trucks. So how do you go about figuring out who's at fault?
Well, the physical facts the police report's the first starting point, the witness statements, the dash cams, the information from the trucking company, all of that helps with distributing and understanding the liability. Many times, liability is distributed between multiple defendants. It could have been a vehicle pulled in front of the 18-wheeler, and the 18-wheeler overreacted and lost control on a wet highway. Okay, so you can have multiple defendants, but you can also have multiple policies coming into effect. The minimum, for example, for interstate is a $1 million policy on the tractor itself, but there may be a policy on the trailer. It may be there's a policy that may cover the usage of that trailer. Because many times the 18-wheeler's got a cab, the tractor they call it, and then the trailer. Well, they may be required to go to a yard to pick up this trailer and transport it. Okay, so it's not, the tractor and trailer is not owned by one person.
Mm-hmm.
It may have different policies involved in it. So knowing and understanding that, many of the large trucking companies, not only do they have the liability policy, but they also have umbrella policies. And umbrella policies will cover a much greater range beyond the first policy. So, for example, if the primary policy is $1 million and it's obvious that it's going to be more than $1 million involved in it, then they notify the umbrella people, and the umbrella insurance gets involved to be able to protect it once that policy is going to be exhausted. So there's different levels of insurance. There are different coverages involved that may be available to compensate the client who's been injured in an 18-wheeler case.
Mm-hmm. Are the policies for trucking companies? They got to be higher. I mean, right? I mean, I got to assume that they're really vigorously defended by these trucking companies and the insurance companies, right?
Tooth and nail. They come after you with everything. They will not only analyze the facts, they will analyze the position of the vehicles to try to say that your client or somebody else contributed to the accident. They will do what they can to do a background check of the individual, especially on their prior medical, if they've ever filed a claim before, a workers' compensation case, being able to pull medical records from health insurance company, being able to determine if this person was under the influence in the past or at the time, pulling the medical records and the blood count at the hospital to see if alcohol or any kind of drugs appeared in the bloodstream. You name it. They are walking. The best way to look at it with the trucking company and the defense insurance companies and their lawyers, they all walk around with a magnifying glass, looking for everything.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, that's the best way you can do it. They're going to look to try to find everything. That's why, from the lawyer's point of view, representing client, they need to know all this evidence. They need to know what your past medical was, your past driving record, if it's important, all the things that are involved in liability. Because if more the knowledge you have, the better the chance you get to the truth. You don't want somebody to lie, and you don't want someone to hide something, either plaintiff or the defendant.
Mm-hmm. We've talked before about how insurance adjusters will call and try to lowball you and stuff like that after an accident. Is it even worse in these situations because of the fact that they're defending it so hard?
I think my experience has been that the adjusters that work on commercial cases are much more experienced. They're more interested in getting to a quicker resolution.
Oh.
They don't want it to go into lawsuit if they have to because of the expense of defense. It depends a lot on the damages of the individual plaintiff. If the plaintiff has got paraplegic, for example, because of the accident, and that makes it very severe, then they're going to pull everything they can to determine what's involved in it. But the timing of their offers, their evaluations are based on the evidence and information that the plaintiff lawyer gives them. So we want to make sure they have all the medical records as soon as they get them. As soon as we have them, we send them over. We want them to know and make sure that they put up enough reserves in their insurance account to make sure there's a coverage on it. Changing that reserve is a difficult task. But so letting everybody know what the damages are up front, letting them know the duration, the extent, the possibility of surgery, the problems of rehab, all of those things are known to both sides to make sure that you've got an accurate picture of the damages. That gives a greater chance of reaching a resolution without the necessity of litigation. Now, I say that with a grain of salt because sometimes the facts involved in the case are so complicated, or you have a situation where the trucking company is not being compliant in getting the EDR, you may have no choice but to file a lawsuit to seek the court and the subpoena power. So it's not a path that you follow on each case. It's just certain things need to occur within a short period of time. If they don't, then you got to bring the jurisdiction of the court and the power of the court to discover these things.
How often, I mean, just roughly, how often do these get settled versus going to trial?
Well, if statistically, the number of cases that go into litigation on 18-wheeler cases is a little bit higher, not much higher than it would be on the car cases. And they're usually going into litigation for different reasons. But again, it's dependent on the injuries. Because if you're sitting there with someone who's very severely injured, you might as well put it in the lawsuit because they're not going to pay attention until they get close to the courtroom.
Right.
And you will probably need it for the possibility of discovery issues, that kind of thing. But it's a case-by-case basis. But if you do it on a statistical analysis, you got 100 cases, and that automobile accidents, less than 10% ever go to litigation. And of that 10%, less than 1% actually goes to trial. If every single auto accident case had to go to trial in the state of Texas, we would have to have thousands of courts with 24-hour dockets to be able to handle it. It's not going to happen.
Yeah. Yeah, which is honestly better for everybody if it can get settled, obviously. Then because at least then you don't have to go through the as long as it's settled fairly, that way that you have to go through the trial and all that.
But the key is preparation. If you've got it prepared, so they have the tools to make the proper assessment. We have the tools to know what is necessary for the future. All of those things will reach to an agreement to a greater chance of getting a proper settlement than it would be if you just merely filed a lawsuit and go through the time periods for lawsuit and litigation progress. So there's different tools to be used. But if everybody's on the same plane, the same page of trying to get everything back to normal, then it moves quicker.
Yeah, so, makes sense. All right, well, that's it for this episode of Advocacy Exchange, Navigating Texas Injury Law. If you've been involved in a crash with a commercial truck, the legal road ahead is very different, and you don't have to walk it alone. Visit littletonlawfirm.com to speak with Larry and the team. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel and leave us a review. We very much appreciate it. Larry, I always love chatting with you. Thanks so much for your time.
Thank you, Tom. Thank you for your time.
Thanks for watching. Be sure to hit that like and subscribe button and leave us a review in the comments.